9 months.
Open your mouth, prepare your tongue, because you're about to get a taste.
I cannot believe we've gone 12 episodes without me being able to talk about Final Fantasy.
Well, I know the doll is bad, so I gotta think the Dusty Balloon is less bad.
I mean, if all life everywhere ends, what have I lost?
Facial hair as a theme is not something I ever would have chosen.
So yeah, that's the one that Rock is just sweaty the whole time.
He's got that good pointy Jafar beard.
I've got 3 pages of AMA citations.
This is the Debate This podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another Debate This Sidebar. Since we've entered into our second year of debating a few months ago, I thought it would be fun to take some time and get to know the people behind the flimsy arguments. I'm Todd Thomas, and today I have a list of questions for Andrew, Kyle, and Matt. No funny names today, but we can make fun of each other later, I guess. And that will hopefully help you, the cherished listener, get to know us and this podcast a little bit better. So, my first question, hey guys.
Hey.
Hey.
Todd's
Hey,
not going
what's
to answer any questions
No.
to keep that aloof sense of mystery about
Yeah,
him.
I don't want anyone to know anything about me.
Kyle, you can't do that because there's an important episode. My mom has asked me every week for the last year. I really like your podcast, but I can't tell whose voice is whose. So here it is, Mom. You're welcome.
That's fair. So this podcast is for Matt's mom.
Hi,
Hey,
Matt's mom.
We're glad you're a listener.
Matt, what's your mom's name?
My mom's name is Brenda.
Hi, Brenda. Brenda Cole. Thanks for listening.
So everyone, if we
That,
could,
that one was for you.
That's okay. Spent a lot of time on family members already. So my first question, just very generally, how do we know each other? Who wants to tell the magical tale?
I met Todd deep in the woods. No, I mean we all went to the same college and we're in the same chapter of a fraternity in that college, Otterbein University, Sigma Delta Phi, and now we get on Google Hangouts and do this podcast every few weeks.
Yeah.
And the 3 of us were in school together while Matt Cole was 4. And then,
Yeah. No, the only person from this podcast who I actually knew from college was Kyle. Not because Kyle went to college with me, but because Kyle lived in the house that my fraternity had, and we saw him sometimes between runs to the movie theater.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That special year after college when you exist but you don't really exist.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
you're a phantom of your former
You're
self.
living your best life.
So that year, Andrew and I lived together, and boy howdy did we play video games and eat pizza and drink beer.
Yep.
But I will still say that I think that was the worst year of my life.
Absolutely.
The year,
100%.
the year that encompassed, the year after I graduated college when you're supposed to be the happiest in your entire that was the worst one.
Oh yeah.
It was a shame spiral of getting let go from my internship and playing 4 playthroughs of Mass Effect 2 and then managing a sandwich shop for 9 months.
I was working retail and playing League of Legends. And
Yeah, I
Mom,
was
look
gonna
at
say
me
you
now.
guys got really into League at that time.
I don't remember that.
I remember for the first 3 months after I graduated college, I lived in the attic of the fraternity house and didn't have money for food because I was only working one part-time job 10 hours a week. And so I ate oyster crackers and cheese sandwiches for 3 months, and that was it.
I lived off of movie theater concession stand food for the first year or 2 after college.
That's right.
I wanna just make a plug right now. And you too, listeners, you can have the same glow up that we did, and one day you can also be on a podcast.
One day you too can host a podcast that maybe 100 people listen to a week.
So now that we're talking about the podcast itself and not our shameful lives after college, so what prompted Debate This to be? Where did it come from? What's kind of the backstory? How did we get here?
Yeah, I can take that. So, speaking about just shady lives that we're embarrassed of. So, I had moved on in my career. I had become a big kid with a real time job, and I think something happens after 25, 26 where all of the glamour and glitz of having a real job kind of fades. Sorry, Matt. Spoiler alert.
You say that like it hasn't already faded.
Yeah, he's already jaded like the rest of us. And I think something happens to all of us where you're like, oh, okay, so work isn't everything, and this is not going to fulfill me. That's fine. So as you get a little older, and I've been saying this a lot, I think like as like men in your 30s, if I had to wrap up one statement about being in my 30s, it's getting invested in my hobbies. Like that is the key to at least, yeah, because we'll say the key to happiness, my key to happiness. So I really wanted something creatively. I had been trying to blog for some time. I had a couple. You can probably find my failed attempts on Medium out there and still active in the internet. I tried doing game development for a little bit, but just didn't want to. I don't like coding, so I had been listening to a lot of podcasts and specifically like game book club podcast. And I was like, yeah, I could do this. I'm a white cisgendered male in the Midwest, so there's probably not enough of those people doing podcasts.
Oh man.
So I contacted two of my other white male cisgendered friends from college, and I said we're gonna do a podcast, and then and they agreed, and that was Kyle and Todd. And really, my only thought process there was who would be funny to just carry on a conversation with, like who can I kind of riff off of pretty naturally. And the three of us have always been really close and have a really good chemistry. And then Matt and I had this kind of like stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends moment?
That's the exact reference that I was going to make.
Yeah,
exact reference.
Well, I mean, you can tell that story if you want.
Yeah, sure. So I had also, much like Andrew, tried to break into digital entertainment and failed in a heap of fire. I had just gotten out of this gaming YouTube channel that I was doing with another buddy that just didn't get off the ground and sucked up a lot of my time and energy, and I really missed it and was looking for something else to do, but didn't really have an avenue. And this was like peak my first year out of college, being in that shameful death spiral of nothingness. So I was at a fraternity event and got talking to Andrew. I had known Kyle because he was the attic dweller of the fraternity house. I knew Todd because when I was in a fraternity...
Everybody knows Todd.
Yeah, when I was in the fraternity, Todd came
because when Todd was in college, he networked like crazy.
He sure did.
Remember when that was the joke about Todd?
I don't, but I want to hear what Matt's going to say because I think it might be a compliment, and I'm really fishing for it now.
So actually, when I was in college, Todd had come to one of the fraternity meetings to do a leadership retreat with us that we all ignored for an hour.
That also happened.
Yeah, I all I remember is something about colors, and that was how I found out that Fitzies existed. But so I had known everyone, but not super well, and I was talking to Andrew at this fraternity event, and he was like, well, me and these other guys just started a podcast, but we don't really know what's next.
Yep.
And I was like, hi there, I went to radio school. I would love to help. And got brought in kind of as the guy who knew the next step.
The industry in.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we move on, I do want to pose a challenge to our listeners. If you can find and screenshot either Andrew's blog or Matt's YouTube channel, we'll send you something.
You can't be related to us either. That's not fair.
Fine. We'll put that stipulation on. Sorry, Derek and or Brenda.
Yeah. Yep. There it is.
Also, Brad, because he, I think, was one of the only subscribers to that YouTube channel.
Oh,
hey,
what's up? What's up, Brad?
I subscribe to that channel.
Oh, hey, thanks.
Well, so that explains how we actually like got to be four dudes making this podcast. So who wants to share maybe how we got to like this name and this format?
I'll take that because that's kind of came from my brain. So when Andrew reached out to me about wanting to start a podcast, and what kind of he wanted to talk about, which was comics and video games, I kind of started brainstorming some ideas. I think we kicked around and still kick around the Gilmore Girls podcast idea. I thought the best way for four guys to talk about comics and video games, especially since I'm 2 time zones away from you guys, and none of us are in quite the same place, and we were worried about schedules working out. I thought, what if we did what's the word I'm thinking of? A pundit style, a crossfire style
That's right.
show on these games, so that way if someone had to sit out a week, if we couldn't all get together, it wouldn't be a huge loss. And we recorded a few trial episodes of it. I think, did one of them, did the Mario Sonic one make it as our...
It is not that anyone who like is just now picking up on the podcast should go start with episode 1, the pilot, but it's there.
It is out there.
And
we're not taking it away because we want to be honest to ourselves, but oof.
I think if I recall, Mario and Sonic never made it live. That one was way too broad. And after we did that, it was like, okay, there was some nuggets there, but yikes.
Yeah. And we kind of quickly decided, like, we did want all 4 of us on the call. It works best as a moderator 4 argument or 3 arguments type thing, not a free for all like I had originally concepted. And we refined it. We actually started out under a different name of Know You're Wrong Because. And
I thought that was clever.
It was a nice
it was too
title
long.
that was too long. So Andrew, with his marketing skills, refined us down to debate this that we are today.
Yeah. I did just look back. Our first episode is the Beta Ray Bill episode, which I think we did as a pilot. I think we did Mario v Sonic and we did the Beta Ray Bill episode.
Because if you listen all the way through, I think we do a closer as Know You're Wrong Because. But
did we never change that?
No. We do a closer as Know You're Wrong Because.
Consummate professionals.
But then there's also a Debate This closer, and I specifically remember this because I listened to it. And Andrew, I texted you. I'm like, hey, man, I think both closers are on there. You're like, Which I interpreted as we are who we are and we won't hide our faults.
You have to start low so that you can raise that bar eventually.
So okay. We've talked about, what kind of brought us here, how we got to this format, what we're doing. Let's talk some of the nitty-gritty. We use the joke and the phrase a lot, like, this is how the sausage is made. So specifically for the 2 people that are involved in making sausage, how does this podcast actually get put together?
I'll let you start with that, Matt, and then I can fill in from when you leave off.
Sure, yeah. We, I think, are lucky enough to have 2 people who both have some audio editing background.
We're super lucky. We're very, very lucky.
Yep.
And it's super nice too because Kyle and I both have a lot of experience in different ends of audio engineering and audio editing. So there are plenty of things that I have no idea about that Kyle can handle. And I'm sure that there are plenty of things that Kyle knows that I do anyway, but I want to feel important. So we all record in different locations, like Kyle was saying, and this is just a big old Google Hangout fest. And let me tell you the majesty of this little website called time.is.
Oh, man.
Big shout out, thank you to Griffin McElroy for turning us onto this one.
Don't give away all of our secrets.
No, the world needs to know about time.is, Kyle. Let me tell you, if you're trying to sync up 4 people in 4 different places using 4 different computers and 4 different recording softwares, having a local sync point is great. Anyway, we all record on our own, and then everybody sends all their shit to me, and then I spend 5 ever putting it together, and I mostly edit for content and making sure that things flow well and that we stay together and we don't go off on gigantic tangents unless it's about American Gladiators, and then I just let those tangents go. But I make sure that people are laughing when they're supposed to be laughing and that tracks don't get too far out of sync, and that's pretty much where I end. I make sure all the tracks are the same length, and then I upload all those tracks of the same length and send them to Kyle, and that's when he does actual alchemist wizardry that I do not understand to make us sound better. So tag Kyle, you're it.
So once Matt sends them to me, I do all the mixing and mastering. I load everything up into Logic Pro now. I used Reaper for a while for anyone who cares about such things. And in there I've got our theme song saved, and I put that together using some royalty-free tracks from the composer Ozed. You should check them out if you like our the music we use in the show. It's all from Ozed. Yeah, I do my thing. I mix and master and kick it on over back to Andrew, who takes care of all the back end stuff, makes sure it gets uploaded on time, gives us some good copy, and puts it out there so you guys can all hear it.
I do the words.
He does the words.
Andrew Wordsmith Henderson.
I guess I'll go back and say too, I use Adobe Audition C6 if anybody cares, because I'm a cake eater. So there's that.
I don't know if that means...
I use Microsoft Word, which is, I believe, the 2016 edition. So, yeah. I like to think of it as Matt is the scientist and Kyle is the artist.
I'll take that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll go with that, sure. But that, I think that's like the tech side of it. As far as episode ideas and stuff go, it's all four of us pretty equally.
It's a free for all. We've got a nice shared Google Drive account that we throw things into, and Andrew and Todd are nice enough to go through and take our crazy ideas and turn them into more sane, palpable ideas, and put it all to a schedule so that Matt and I aren't completely lost every week when we do record. I gotta say, because I forgot to mention, I tried to get a couple other podcasts off the ground, and without someone doing keeping us to a schedule and getting us all signed in on time, it don't happen.
Every band needs a roadie. Every team needs a dad.
Well, so now we've talked about like the behind the scenes, the who we are, the what kind of brought us here. So obviously we have put this podcast together to talk about video games and comics. So the thing that I want to ask now is, we can answer this question in a couple different ways, but I think everyone has their like first favorite video game, like the video game that when they think like, oh man, I might really enjoy Breath of the Wild now, but what was the very first video game you loved? So I would love to hear a bit about maybe what was your first favorite video game, and maybe what is your favorite video game now. You can even spice in like what are you currently obsessed with. Just where is your video game interest lying now? Yeah, let's go. Let's hit it with, we'll go Kyle, Matt, Andrew, then I'll take it.
All right. So the first video game I got super obsessed with, like many 6-year-olds in 1996, was Pokemon Red. I have then gone on to play every single Pokemon game that was released until present day. I continue to do it. I love the Pokemon series. It's great, except maybe we won't talk about Sun and Moon too much because it's not as great as some of the others.
We could do a whole episode on that one.
Can I ask a question about that, Kyle?
Yes.
So I have outed myself before as the person who does not get that into Pokemon. When you say every single game, I know that each generation has at least 2 typically games. Are you saying you've played every generation?
I've played every generation.
Okay. And now how many multiple games have you played in a generation? Like, did you play Red and Blue and Yellow?
No. So the way it worked in the Harper household is I always got one game. Derek, my brother, always got another game.
Oh,
so
nice.
we could trade.
I'm so jealous.
What's it like to have a nice sibling?
And swap.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. Derek's a great guy. Yeah, so like I played Red, I played Yellow, I played Silver. Derek got Crystal, so I didn't. Then I played Sapphire and Emerald, Pearl. I ended up skipping Platinum because I was graduating high school at that time and had other things going on. But then, Soul Silver, Black 2,
X and Y.
X. Did I play X or Y? Y.
Yeah, that was the better one.
and
Omega Ruby,
Moon and Ultra Moon. Oh, and Omega Sapphire.
Omega Sapphire, yeah.
Yeah, I think of those, my favorites are still the remakes of Red, so Fire Red, and the remakes of Silver, Soul Silver, are probably my favorites of the series. But that is my obsession. And the longer we do this podcast, the more I start to wonder if I played any other games besides Pokemon growing up. But that's where I'm coming from.
What are you currently investing time into?
Currently, I am playing a lot of Super Smash Brothers, Dead Cells, and Hearthstone. Hearthstone scratches a completely different itch because I was very into Magic the Gathering growing up as well, which hasn't come up a ton on the podcast, but that is my my collectible card game of late.
My good friend Tommy, he listens to the podcast sometimes, and I know for a fact he is working on his PhD, and he will still at times, like when he's getting breakfast ready, have Hearthstone going on the iPad. So like, it is a thing.
It is my addiction. I hate it, but I can't stop playing it. And everyone else who is currently playing Hearthstone is probably right along with me.
You're unhappy because you play it, but you play it because you're unhappy.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Matt, what do you have? Where'd you come from, and what are you doing now?
Well, contrary to popular belief, my first game system wasn't the Nintendo Wii. Sorry, I'm not that young.
But it was the PlayStation 3.
No, so when I was really, really little, obviously before I was born, but my dad got an NES as a wedding present. And so growing up, we had an NES around the house, and the first game that I can ever remember really falling in love with was the original Super Mario Brothers, which is what sparked my love of platformers for the rest of ever. I was an only child, so games that were like, how can I get good at this game that I can only play by myself and not show off to, were pretty much how I got into video games. But there were a lot of like old NES titles that I played a lot.
That hits me so hard.
Right? Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, it is a feeling that if you're not an only child, you don't understand. But man, if you're an only child, that'll cut you deep. But yeah, so I played a lot of old NES titles, the original Super Mario Brothers. There was a monster truck game that I loved, USA Volleyball I really loved. And then I got an N64 and got into a lot of games, but particularly 007 GoldenEye was huge. I mean, of course, Perfect Dark, but like I was the kid in the neighborhood with GoldenEye. My neighbor had Perfect Dark, so I didn't play as much Perfect Dark as I did GoldenEye. And then,
that is such a thing from that time period.
Yeah,
I was the kid with this game.
Yep, I was the friend whose house we went to play Guitar Hero 2. My buddy was who we went to play Guitar Hero 3, so on and so forth. But yeah, so I've been mostly Nintendo my whole life. It was just the kind of consoles that I loved. So like N64 was the original Mario Kart, the original Smash. A boat racing game called Hydro Thunder. I played until it burned out. Star Fox 64 I bought off eBay and played into oblivion. And then I got a GameCube and so on and so forth. I played the first few Pokemon games and absolutely loved them, but kind of got out of them and fell into the unfortunate trap of rhythm gaming that people my age all fell into. So
yeah.
I can tell you all about Guitar Hero, but I don't want to.
You already did that. That was a
I
whole
did.
podcast that you did.
Yeah. And then I stumbled into this magic thing called Pokemon Pinball 2 for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh man.
Have
you talked about this yet?
You didn't really play it much though, did you?
Not too much. But yeah, so I've just kind of bounced around from like random Nintendo game to random Nintendo game until I got to college and watched a lot of other things. I think because I had a PS2 that I bought shamefully for Dance Dance Revolution, but I had Battlefront 2 and Vice City and your PS2 classics. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Currently, I'm all Switch all the time. Oh, and Mario Maker. Let's put that out there because I listened to a whole podcast about how exciting Mario Maker 2 is going to be today.
Man.
Mario Maker
We are
is
gonna stream some Mario Maker 2.
And before we move on from that, we need to figure out a goal to reach that if we do, we will upload a video of Matt playing Dance Dance Revolution because that
Oh man,
that
needs to happen.
It doesn't. I
want a live stream
so
of us drinking and then playing Dance Dance Revolution because I too was that high schooler.
Yeah.
We were all
getting ideas for
together,
Todd's
that high
bachelor
schooler.
party right now.
Okay, so we need a subscriber goal that if we hit, we will have a Todd v Matt Dance Dance Revolution.
I'm already throwing up.
Yeah, I think like 5 million sounds safe.
I think 150.
I also don't want to leave Matt's answer until because I don't know if we've talked about it. Your history with Pokemon Pinball. I think you really need to elaborate for a second, just in case we haven't talked about that.
Let me finish what I was saying about my favorite game.
Please,
and then,
you do
so
you.
like, I'm preemptively saying right now that Mario Maker 2 is my favorite game because come June it's gonna be. But Smash, fucking Tetris 99, even though I can't win. And Splatoon 2. And then I'm late to the game, and I'm sorry, but I'm playing Breath of the Wild, and I love it, and it's what I do with most of my time. Yeah. I got really good at Pokemon Pinball 2. It's kind of shameful. I play it on the airplane when I go places. I think that according to the Way Back Machine and the last archives I found on world record scores of Pokemon Pinball 2, I have a top 50 world record score. That's all I really want to say about it. That's a whole nother podcast.
I have not been like the 50 best person at anything in my own area code. So like that's pretty incredible.
So like Pokemon Pinball 2 was not a Nintendo Championship game. It's not something that people like kept track of. But you know,
Matt did.
Everybody just has the thing they got good at, and after like reaching a score on Pokemon Pinball 2 that I was like, wow, that's a really big number. I wonder if anybody else has hit that big a number. I did some digging and found an old chart of like top scores from that game that seemed to be unverified. It seemed like just a blog post. I don't really know, but I was well in the top 50 with my like 800 trillion something score.
Oh God.
Yeah. I'll pull the cartridge out someday and tell you what the number is, but it's like 870 trillion or something like that.
Yikes.
Matt, we should talk about you speedrunning it.
Speedrunning Pokemon Pinball 2?
Yeah.
I think the goal is to have it last as long as possible.
Yeah, there's no speedrunning. I'll speedrun Mario Maker. I do a lot of that.
I'm looking at leaderboards, and the number one, the leader has beaten Pokemon Pinball in 14 minutes and 58 seconds.
Oh, beaten it?
So like you
Yeah.
get enough of the required score for the level, then you quit?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
No, so like Pokemon Pinball 2 has a Pokedex. This is a whole nother goddamn podcast.
Yeah.
But like it's the same as the other Pokemon game. You gotta catch them all. And you can catch them all if you want to, or you can just play, I don't know, fucking pinball and get a high score and be better than everybody else. And that's what I did. Damn it. I think it's somebody else's turn.
All right. Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, so
Everyone at home, Matt has like thrown off his headphones. He's like pacing around his
He's
recording
done.
room now.
he's grabbed his DS. He's done. So I'll start. I got a Super Nintendo in 1993, and that is what opened the floodgates for the rest of my life. So I didn't do sports. I didn't do other activities. I didn't go outside. I played Super Nintendo, and I have a lot of fond memories of playing Super Mario World. Just playing that game to death, like looking in every corner, every crevice, finding the secrets, getting to the Star Road, making it fall colors and the weird Mario head Koopas, which like I think that definitely like turned the switch on my like completionist tendencies, for better or for worse. But I think for what really turned the hobby, turned the interest into a hobby for me was, and I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about it before, but Final Fantasy series. Yeah.
What is
Oh,
that?
you like those games?
Yeah. So I think Kyle's got Pokemon and I've got Final Fantasy. So that and again, like I'm not gonna say they're the best games, but it is definitely my favorite series. And I think I could cite very specific games that like I want to like so much it hurts. I'm looking at you, 15, 13, 11, 7, 4. Yeah.
Which 11 actually came out after 13, but before 15, because that's how
11
numbers work
11
in the Final Fantasy world.
11 was the MMO that I did play, but it was very VV hard. But I have, like most people, it was 1997. That in that same year you've got Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye 007, Final Fantasy 7, Metal Gear Solid. No, Metal Gear Solid was 99. 1997 was a big fucking year for games, and I think that, if I remember correctly, that was really when it was like, okay, now like it's not just jumping up and down with Mario, but like games can have a real narrative and like characters that I can really latch onto, and music. And I was like Napstering the soundtracks for Final Fantasy 7 and 8, which is which I got a smile out of all y'all because you know what I'm talking about.
Was it Napster or was it LimeWire?
It was Napster first.
It was Napster first, then Kazaa, then LimeWire.
Once
Kazaa.
Metallica got all bent about it.
Yep.
Rip your family's computer.
That's right. That's right. I right fucked my PC.
Who all used Kazaa to download like Kazaa Premium and feel like a master hacker?
Like you're a hacker.
Yeah, those are some times. But that was also like my entrance into weeb culture. So that was like there was that period, that very dark period, that early 2000s where it's like it's not good unless it's made from Japan. So I was very like obviously against like anything that wasn't Nintendo, anything that was like Call of Duty or like World War II shooters. It was like only Square games and only Nintendo games, and running around with Naruto hands behind my back.
How many short sleeve button up flame T-shirts did you own?
I personally didn't have any, but I had a lot of friends who did. I had a lot of friends who had those, and there was a couple headbands in the group. There's a non-zero amount of headbands. Yeah. So that was leading up into high school, and then I went to an anime convention, and then I hit rock bottom. I hit rock bottom. Yada yada yada. Here we are. And then I'd say now there's been such a influx in just amazing indie games, and I think the Switch has really brought a lot of those to light. I personally, so I just bought. It's not new, but I just bought Hollow Knight for Switch, which I had it for PC. This was one of the few games where I bought twice, just honestly because I wanted to patronize the creator, but I wanted that game on Switch. If you haven't played Hollow Knight, and Matt, I keep telling you about it, but like it's so good. It's technically a Metroidvania, but it's got a lot of like platforming elements and like action elements. It's kind of unjustly labeled as a Dark Souls like game, only because it's challenging and it does the whole thing where you have to go, after you die, you go and get your shit back. But the storytelling is really interesting. The art direction and the music are fantastic. Christopher Larkin did the soundtrack, and it's fantastic. The other one that comes to mind is Celeste, which again, that's no secret. It won Game of the Year in 2018, but
it's so good.
It's so good. And if you haven't played it, obviously play it. But even if you don't, even as you, the Royal, if you don't end up playing it, at least watch the speedrun from last year's AGDQ. It was actually featuring, like, they had the entire dev staff, and Matt Thorson, who's the owner and manager, who runs Matt Makes Games, who made that game. They had like 6 of the guys on his team there, like commentating alongside it, and it was really great. The music also there is fantastic. There's been several remixes. You can find them all on Spotify. But yeah, some really great work coming out of these little indie shops.
It's such a good game that I'm so bad at.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Hollow Knight, I think those are the kind of games that I like, where I can, constantly like kind of beat my head against the wall, but against the same level over and over and over again. But like when I finally beat it, I can feel that sense of accomplishment. I know that sounds really shitty, but I think that kind of like goes back to what Matt said earlier about impressing myself because there was no one else in the room.
Boy, howdy, does that feel?
Yeah, I've never said that out loud, but like, God, that just resonated so hard. And I think that's why I love Dark Souls and games like that, because it's kind of like that. It's my very unique experience.
So for me, I grew up in a household where I was the youngest, an only boy, and I remember the Christmas that we got the NES. That was the first console I owned, and shortly thereafter we got the old school Game Boys with the sepia screens that were about the size of a brick.
I've still got mine somewhere at my parents' house.
I specifically remember to like show you what my childhood was, to paint a picture. I specifically remember the Christmas that I got a Game Boy. My grandmother, so at the time we were living with my grandparents, and my grandmother said, "Oh, good, now we can take it into the bathroom with us." So like that was the thought process.
Grandma knew it's up.
Which like just kind of, though it was a fun joke, like I played video games a lot when I was younger. Because again, like only boy, didn't really have siblings that I'd play with. Like I had an older sister at the time. Now I have 3 older sisters once my mother got remarried, and so I played a lot of video games growing up, and I think the very first one that I remember playing that mattered at all was Mario 3. Like I played that a lot. Like I found the warp whistle without having any sort of guide or anything like that, and I was fucking magical. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I was Neo, and I could bend time and space around me. And so in my very first Game Boy game was the original Kirby, like still remember that. I think the very first game, like, and so being a child of like separated parents, they were both trying to buy my love. And so I had all the video game consoles, either at one house or another. And so I, had everything up through, I think the Dreamcast was the first system I didn't own.
That's
and
okay.
Oh, wow.
You didn't miss out.
There were only like 4 games on it that I remember. So
you never
that's
got
fine.
to play Shenmue.
I didn't. You're right. Or Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball. So yeah,
That's okay. They made more of those.
Oh, good. But I think the first game that ever really mattered to me, looking back, and I know we've joked about it a lot, like Super Mario RPG and Earthbound are probably the 2 first Super Nintendo games that I really cared about. And I think growing up, since I didn't, like, I had friends, but I didn't have a lot of friends until I got to, like, high school. I always used video games as a social outlet once I had friends. Like, we also played a lot of GoldenEye, a lot of Perfect Dark. If you have the laptop gun and use the secondary feature, it's a sentry gun and fuck everyone.
Yeah.
You're, like, just running and just throwing it. Or the tranquilizer, you can just trank them, and that's a bad time.
That sniper rifle that could shoot through walls.
Yeah, it's fine. The railgun, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, I think video games were always a big thing in my life, and as I've gotten older, they've become a big social outlet. I mean, I ended up joining our fraternity because Andrew recruited me through Halo 3.
Sure
Like,
did.
that was just the thing. And I think, again, one of my favorite games growing up was the OG Fallout and Fallout 2. I remember buying that at a Walmart from, like, a double pack where they were both in there. So now, we've joked about it. I'm still playing Fallout 76. The internet makes it sound like shit. It is not that bad. I played it for an hour today. People are just salty on the internet. There are 2 different Reddits. There's FO76 and like Fallout 76 filthy casuals. And the filthy and the filthy casuals are the people that are like, we're having a good time. What's wrong? We enjoy what we're doing. And Fallout 76 is just hate. Just pure hate.
Just vitriol.
Just
anger.
yeah, it's so bad.
I think like historic, like isn't the Fallout like fan base like notoriously one of the most egregious ones?
Maybe, and here's the thing: like for people that want to complain about bugs, did you not play any like a Skyrim, like Morrowind, Oblivion game? Like, have you not played the last Fallout? Like, they're so big, there's gonna be bugs, so just deal with it, you privileged asshole. And so, anyway, sorry, fan base. But I'm still currently playing Fallout 76, and much like everyone else, still playing a lot of Smash. I get good at one character, then Andrew ruins my day with his young Link and makes me question if I'm ever actually good with K. Rool. So I've got a lot of self-exploration to do in that whole area.
Got a lot of sweaty dad flops to
Oh,
practice.
he's the sweatiest dad, that K. Rool.
Just before we move on from the video game topic, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell the story of how my parents were convinced to get me a video game system, which was my kindergarten teacher, after failing to get my handwriting any better because I only wrote slightly worse than I do now. Told my mom a good way to improve my hand-eye coordination and therefore my handwriting would be to get me a video game system.
Oh, hell yeah.
God.
Holy
And my
shit,
mom-
wingman,
and my
this
mom
teacher.
bemoans that teacher to this day for recommending that to her.
Wow.
Good guy, that teacher.
Yeah, man.
It was a woman. It was
Good girl, that teacher.
Yeah, good.
If
I don't
whoever.
remember. I don't remember her name, but it was my kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, a completely opposite experience I had. I played video games to the point that I became overweight, so that's fine. So when Animal Crossing came out, I'm pretty sure I gained 10 pounds.
Hit me.
And Todd fights that every day now by doing CrossFit.
That's fair. So we talked video games, so let's go to the other source material we talk about. So briefly, like, the question would be like, where do you stand on comics? Like, who are some of your favorites? Who are, like, whether it's your favorite hero, your favorite villain, maybe a favorite storyline, that could be from the movies, from the original source material. What is your current, like, hey, this is what I'm into in the comic book realm. We'll go that same way. We'll hit Kyle, Matt, Andrew.
Okay, so I got really introduced into comics in middle school by my friend Nick Apt. If you are listening to this, hi. I haven't talked to you in a while, but
Hi, Nick.
Hey, Nick.
He really had a nice collection of X-Men and Wolverine comics. So that was kind of my introduction. It was the early 2000s era of the X-Men. I think without realizing who he was at the time, I did read like the Joss Whedon run of the X-Men kind of as right after it had come out. So X-Men is really, really big to me. I also really enjoy Superman comics when he's written well. I think All-Star Superman is one of the best comic series written. So shortly after being introduced to comics, I also got a computer and spent all of my free time not researching magic cards, researching different Marvel characters and seeing how their stats compared from that like little stat bar Marvel did at the time of like intelligence, strength, speed, and some fourth thing.
Power of friendship.
Yeah. So it's really Marvel comics for me, but I like all comics. Green Lantern is great. I mean, as much as overdone as Batman has been, I do love a good Batman comic. Spider-Man. And then in high school, I I had a lot more downtime. I lived kind of far away from the high school I went to, so if I had something after school, I just had to like hang out and entertain myself. So I'd like walk over to the library, or when I got a car, I'd drive to the local Borders, and I'd grab a comic book collection off the shelf, go hide somewhere where an employee wouldn't bother me too much, and I think I read all of the Ultimate series of comics that were out at the time that way, like Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates, Ultimate Fantastic Four, and it was, I really like comics, guys. I haven't been able to stay into it too much in my adult years because comics are expensive, and I'm not rich, so that is a hobby I had to set aside, but I do still very much love a good comic when I get my hands on one.
Who are some of the favorites?
Wolverine will always be one of my favorites.
Do you also want Zac Efron to play Wolverine?
Zac Efron would be such a good Wolverine, but we
you.
don't need to get into that now. Nightcrawler is one of my favorites. I really just all of the cartoon Justice League characters are just top tops for me too. Those are the big heavy hitters for me. And then Spider-Man. Whenever I read a Spider-Man comic or watch a movie, I'm like, man, I always forget how much I love Spider-Man, and it's a lot.
What about you, Matt?
So I'm kind of in a weird place in this category. Like, I love comic storylines and like I love all of that, but I hate reading. And when I was like way younger, I used to get picked on all the time because I read really slow. And so I just never got into actually reading comic books, but turns out I like reading on the internet. And so I would do this weird thing where I would learn or hear about a superhero and then just dive through Wikipedia for hours learning everything about them. And I'm a firm believer that there are no Wikipedia articles that are more accurate and more highly policed than superhero / Marvel / DC comic Wikipedia pages, because comic book fans are real fans and they are diehard and they will not let inaccuracies slip through that shit. Like, you can
Very
never
true.
go on to a comic book Wikipedia page and not see everything have at least 2 sources.
Yeah, that's true. You can't really trust Wikipedia for like English or like chemistry, but
History.
but if you're doing a term paper on the Green Lanterns, then Wikipedia is a great
There's no
source.
better source.
Say no more, fam.
Yeah, so I got really into comics and just like comics in general through TV. I mean, the WB kids comic lines. I mean, any of them, like Batman Returns, Young Justice, or the original Justice League cartoon. I was really into Static Shock when that was on TV.
I knew you were gonna name drop
I
Static
remember
Shock.
that.
That was
Yeah,
such a good show.
Such a good show. Phenomenal show. And then the movies came out when I was the right age to really love the first couple X-Men movies. And I've been trying to think about it since we started talking about this, and since I read this question, I don't know when I started really loving Ghost Rider, but Ghost Rider has always been my favorite hero.
It was Nick Cage.
It was right after Nick Cage's
Was it Nick Cage? I'm gonna guess it was
Oscar-worthy
Nick Cage.
performance.
So here's the thing. Nick Cage was a great Ghost Rider, and I will
Ugh,
take that shit
here
to
we
my
go.
grave.
All right.
But no, I remember being really excited for that movie when it was first announced. Like, I don't think it was like I saw that movie and suddenly fell in love with the character. I definitely liked Ghost Rider before that. Maybe it was because like I was an alti emo kid and his head was on fire and spikes and skulls and shit. But yeah, so I've always really liked Ghost Rider. I've always thought that the X-Men were really cool. My cousin got me into the X-Men when I was really young. I liked Suicide Squad on the DC side, which I've talked about before, but I love Marvel heroes. I don't really like DC heroes. I love DC villains. I don't love all the Marvel villains. So I like Joker. I like Riddler a lot.
Hot Topic Harley Quinn.
Not Hot Topic Harley Quinn. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
So I don't know much about comics. I think if I've
You're
made anything
kidding.
clear, yeah. I like to think I wear my emotions on my sleeve.
Real quick, Andrew, how many first and last named Green Lanterns have protected Earth?
Well, there's Hal Jordan
Yeah.
and Jon Stewart, made famous by The Daily Show.
Yeah.
And that's it, because there are no other Daily Show anchors that also share names with Green Lantern. So there you go.
There's at least 2 more you should be able to name.
Cool.
It's fine. Go on. Continue.
Cool. So when Matt and Kyle suggested adding comics onto the subject matter, I was like, okay. I was like, I'm gonna be honest, like I can't bring a lot to the table, but I'm happy to sit in. That said, I like comics, and I liked, so like growing up, I never read comics because it felt too much. It was just way too intimidating. It's impossible to just get like one comic and be like, oh, I'm gonna grab this Spider-Man 36. Like,
Oh, especially at that time
Yeah.
before the attempts to try and ease
Right.
people into it.
so that was very intimidating, and I just kind of noped out of that. Now that said, I definitely did get into some of the shows. I loved the X-Men show when we were growing up. Like that show is just it's hot fire. The '90s Spider-Man show, which was fine, which is good enough. And then I played a lot of the games, so I played like all of those old Spider-Man beat 'em up games. I think there was like 4 for the Super Nintendo. And specifically the ones with the Spider-Man and Venom series. Like I loved Maximum Carnage, the one with the red cart with not Woody Harrelson on the cover.
Yeah.
That was very good. And I think like for a long time that solidified my love for Spider-Man, and I still say Spider-Man is my favorite, because he's one of the few that I like truly like got into. Like I was able to name all the villains, like I knew the backstory and the different side stories and all that, mostly because of those games. But like I said, I hit that early 2000s. I went into weeb territory, and nothing Western was good enough. So I did get into a lot of anime, both cartoon and manga. Read a lot of manga. Would sit in Barnes and Noble in the section that you don't go in, and the sticky section, and you go in sticky smelly section.
So, what mangas did you read? Because I feel
Yeah.
like we should incorporate your manga side more into the show, knowing this.
Yeah, I didn't, again, like manga is really hard because it's like comics but more expensive.
Yeah.
and less good.
And well, there's some really good ones. I read the Full Metal Alchemist manga.
Okay, that's good.
Because push my glasses up. The original show that I know you watched, Todd, and I watched when it came out was kind of did the Game of Thrones thing where like they beat the manga. The show beat the manga, so it went its own direction.
Gotcha.
And then like the manga was like, no, actually it happened this way, and that's why Brotherhood was created. And then it's hard. I'm having trouble thinking off the top of my head. Some of the other ones I know, like the original, like Dragon Ball, like the original Toriyama Dragon Ball is so good, and the art is just amazing. Like it's a real classic. And then a lot of the shows that I watch, obviously like Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon and stuff that was on like old school Toonami. Cowboy Bebop was like my real gateway drug into like real like hard anime. Any you guys see Cowboy Bebop?
I've
No,
started it
okay.
a couple times, but I can't.
Yeah.
It's good, but it just like doesn't hold
Yeah.
my attention at this point in my life.
See, I think the draw for me, at least at that time, was like Cowboy Bebop is 20 episodes, right? Or no, yeah, it's like 12 to 20 episodes. Like that's
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah.
Shoot. Okay.
Exactly. So it's like, oh shit, like I can do that. Like that's a couple movies, right? Like I could just I can torrent that for free. Or I actually had like VHSs that I would tape Cowboy Bebop episodes at 3 a.m. when it aired on Adult Swim, and I had a stack of VHSs with my Cowboy Bebop. But that to me was like so much more digestible than being like, oh, I'm gonna read the entire anthology of Spider-Man, and that was kind of reinforced when I went and bought like a collection of the first 60 issues of X-Men, like old like silly 60s X-Men, which like it's fine, and it was fun to read for the history of it, but it wasn't like entertaining. It was just like, okay, it's X-Men or whatever. But yeah, that was definitely a big draw for me. And then I got out of anime because I was an adult and I was like, I can't like this anymore because it's weird. And then and I would say in the recent past couple years, I kind of have been swinging back to it because there's a lot of good stuff out there right now. If anyone with a Netflix access, you should definitely check out Devilman Crybaby. It's like, again, it's similar to Cowboy Bebop. Like it's very not anime. It's just a ridiculously violent action cartoon, and again, there are 8 episodes, so like, or 8 to 12 episodes. So I mean, it's really digestible. I also I watched a lot of Naruto when I was in high school, so I've been most into right now is My Hero Academia. I just finished the 3rd season of that, and that show is so very good. But it's basically Naruto, which was basically Harry Potter, which was basically Dragon Ball Z, which is to say a school or an organization, a structured organization of several people doing one particular thing, whether that being wizarding or ninjaing. In this case, it's all superpowers. So they all have like this. It's like a society of superheroes. Everybody has like one superpower, and they all have to X-Men together. And then like they go to hero school because that's their whole society, is like their whole economy is based on superheroes. So the kids go to hero school and they learn how to be heroes, and you go through and you meet all this like colorful cast of characters, and everyone's personality is defined by their one superpower. So everyone is like very easy to understand, very easy to categorize. Like it is visual Pringles.
I saw that movie. I know. Bowling for Soup did the soundtrack. I think it was called Sky High.
Yep. Good.
Well, so for me, I think it's pretty similar to some of you. So I grew up, my after school, tradition was X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman. Like those were the cartoons that I watched every day after school. So I grew up also watching those same things, which also brought me to really love Nightcrawler. Like I think he was definitely one of my favorite like X-Men. I didn't like Wolverine. I didn't really like Cyclops. Was a boner. Like I just didn't really like.
Oh, see, I've really come around on Cyclops in my adult years too. Similar to how I've come around on Superman.
I think in
Cyclops
looking back,
is always my favorite because he's pragmatic.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think looking back, like with Cyclops, like no, we need to do this, and like adult me is like, yeah, like Cyclops gets it, but like younger me was like, Cyclops, shut up, man. Like
I hated Cyclops reading the early comics, and then I don't know when it flipped, but I definitely had a moment where I was like, all right, Cyclops kind of kicks ass, and I've been a Wang for my entire life because I thought he was a tool.
Like I said, every team needs a dad.
Well, and so, referencing Nightcrawler, I think when X2 came out, the Nightcrawler scene was the coolest thing that possibly could have happened, which is a shame that then he wasn't in the third one, apparently because the actor wanted to work on his own line of cologne. That's what I had read.
What? That's amazing.
But when you see how X3 came out...
Well, yeah.
Who really lost?
But I think about that time was when I got really into comic book lore, and so I didn't ever buy, at least not many physical comic books. I would read the Wikipedia articles and dive down the hole and try and make the connections, which has kind of brought me to the comic book fan I am now, because if we talk Marvel movies at this point in time, I will tell you how they all link together in every little intricate way, in every bit and piece of it, because I love that.
Foreshadowing for a possible flavor text before Infinity Wars 2's come out.
But yeah, I think that I always enjoyed them growing up, and that was just a big part of who I was as a younger child. And so as I got older, I also played the X-Men beat 'em up games. And here now, my favorite heroes, I love Captain America. I have a movie replica Captain America shield hanging up in the kitchen that my fiance and I share together. She lets me hang that up. So if that tells you anything about how much I care about that. I also dream of a day when the Green Lantern is done correctly, so I'm there on that as well. As far as favorite villains, I love Carnage, and I loved the run of Venom being a villain and kind of how he's gone to this anti-hero and all that, so I'm excited to see the potential that happens there. Yeah, I'd say that having grown up in religiously after school every day, an hour and a half at minimum was spent watching comic book shows, and I'd never really cared for Superman much, and I really grew to love Batman. In fact, I would probably say my favorite Batman villain was, I really liked the cartoon Penguin. Penguin done in the cartoon, just again, it's Danny DeVito. It's overdone. He's got mechanical penguins. Everything is ice related, and that's just kind of how it is. Yeah, I think that I enjoyed that. But I'm kind of what Andrew had said, referencing, Woody Harrelson. I hope that Venom isn't bad. I don't have a lot of hope based upon wig-related estimations of how it's going to go. But I'm hoping for the best there. Well, with having said all that, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for listening in to Debate This episode of a Sidebar. Follow along with the discussion on Twitter and Facebook at DebateThisCast, and let us know what you think. Next week, we'll be back with a brand new argument about a question no one is asking. That said, if you do have questions for us that you'd like us to answer, go ahead and add us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. But until then, you can come have a casual, friendly discussion with us beside the swing sets, nerds.